How to handle failures? Okay, there is a question coming from Sharon. Good question, Sharon. Uh, Let me tell you a story. I think that's the best way to send the message across. This is the story of a entrepreneur in Tirupur, okay, of a boy who did not even complete his 10th standard. Okay, so when he was in his fourth standard, it seems he failed all his courses in the school, and his father, scolded him in front of the whole family, in front of his grandmother, and said, "You are a good for nothing fellow. You're failing all the courses in the fourth standard itself. I'm spending all my money in paying your school fees, and you're not studying properly. And what will you go on to become? You're a good for nothing fellow. I don't want to waste my money on spending your school fees. Maybe it is better for you to go and work in that tea kade, in the tea shop nearby. This is what you are fit for." This is how harshly it seems the father scolded that young boy. And the grandmother, it seems, came to the rescue of that young boy and said, "Don't scold him like this. Don't destroy his self-worth by using such harsh words. He may not be good at studies, but I'm sure that he will be good at whatever he wants to do. And I will support him, whatever he wants to do, let him do it. Please don't, discourage him like this." So the grandmother, it seems, asked him, "What is it that you want to do? If you're not interested in studies, you don't want to go to school, what do you want to do?" And it seems those were the days about 2, 3 decades ago when the textile industry in Tirupur was coming up. There were textile, looms coming up, coming up in mills coming up in Tirupur. And the boy said that, "I want to go and learn textile machinery, the ins and outs of textile manufacturing, etc." So the grandmother said, "All right, why don't you send him, let him become an intern at one of these textile mills, let him learn something hands-on if that is what he's interested in, instead of going, to school." So this boy, by the time he finished his 8th standard, he became a school dropout, and he went on to learn all the ABCs of textile technology on the floor by becoming an intern. And by the time he was in his 12th standard, that age, he wanted to start his own partnership firm in textiles. So his father said, "I will not give you the capital. I don't have any faith in you. I know what you are fit for. You're going to fail like you failed in the school." Again, his father, it seems, discouraged him. But the grandmother again came to his rescue and said, "No, I will give you the capital." And she gave him the capital by selling her gold jewelry, which she had inherited from her mother and her mother-in-law, etc. She sold the jewelry and gave him the capital to start a textile partnership firm. He started it with his young friend, who became his partner. And it seems 1 year from that partner ran away with all the capital, whatever machinery was there. He sold it off without this fellow's knowledge and ran away. So he lost his entire capital. Imagine, you're a young fellow, just about 12th standard age, you're starting your first company, and your own partner, the person that you relied on, cheats you and runs away with your capital. What will you do? Again, the father, it seems, came back to that boy and said, "I told you that you're not going to succeed, right? You're not going to be successful. Why do you waste time? You go and become a manager in a textile company. At least you'll get a salary every month. You will be able to stand on your own feet." But the boy said, "No, I don't want to go and become an employee. I want to still start my own business." So this time, it seems, his grandmother mortgaged ancestral property, the land that she had near Tirupur, and gave him a capital for the second time. And this time he started it on his own, without any partnership, without any friend. And his first consignment he was exporting on a ship to a foreign country. That ship was caught in a cyclone and it drowned. That entire consignment drowned in the sea. So imagine, for the second time you face failure in life, your entire consignment drowns. What will you do? Right? Most of us perhaps would have given up. That young boy did not give up. Second time again, he was a failure. His father came back again and said, "See, I told you, at least now you become an employee." Again, he said no. There was still fire in his belly. He did not want to lose. Again, his grandmother went around to all her relatives. She begged and borrowed money, gave him a capital for the third time. And the third time he set up his textile, firm, manufacturing textile mill. He became successful the third time. Today, he is one of the, largest, textile manufacturing firms in Tirupur. His share of the Tirupur exports was, at some point of time, was about 45-50%. I'm talking of this group called the Viking Group. You might have all heard about Osiris, right? He manufactures just bunions, innerwear, etc. But this is the success story of that man. He doesn't have any, big degree on his hand to boast about. But by sheer hard work, he has come up and he has gone on to become a success story by himself. So much so that this whole Tirupur success story is today being studied by foreign economic experts, like Boston University's, economics department came to study the success story in Tirupur. And they found that a large number of these people who are owning the textile looms in Tirupur are people like this: 12th standard dropouts, 8th standard dropouts, who go on to become successful in life, right? This shows that it is not theoretical knowledge. It is not merely, as I said, the degree that you have, right? And look at the irony of that situation. Just 8th standard, 10th standard, 12th standard dropouts are the proprietors of textile, companies which have an annual turnover of 500 crores, 1,000 crores, and MBAs from IITs and IIT graduates and IIM graduates become employees under that 12th standard dropout. This is the irony of the Indian education system that we are having today, right? So this is what we have to learn from them. If this is the kind of courage that you should have, that you should not give up in the face of failure. When you read these success stories of people like this, you just look into your own background, you will find success stories like this. N number of success stories you will find. I'll recommend a book to you written by this girl called Rashmi Bansal. It is called Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish. It is named after that Steve Jobs lecture, where she is talking about 25 great entrepreneurs in India, young entrepreneurs in India, who went on to become successful in the face of extreme debilitating odds. She has written 3 such books about entrepreneurs in India. The second is called Connected Dots. The third is called I Have a Dream. All 3 books are very, very inspiring. If you have that mindset of becoming an entrepreneur, you want to become a job creator in future, and you want to become successful in life, then these stories of these great entrepreneurs, I would definitely recommend you to read. When you read these life stories of such people, you will automatically acquire that courage to take risk in life and not to collapse when you have a failure. You'll learn how to look at failure as a stepping stone to success. There is another message that is coming in saying that you said that youngsters must be fearless and must face social issues. How can I daringly face social issues when I have responsibilities as an older child in my family? Kindly give me a solution, sir. Okay, the eldest is always, has the greater burden. Interesting question, right? But, we have to find a balance there, right? We have to strike a balance there. I was telling you the story of Vivekananda himself, right? He was the eldest in his family. Not the eldest exactly, but he had 3 sisters to look after, right? He had a aged mother to look after. His father had passed away. So how did he, face that situation? And why did he renounce? Did he actually abandon his family in that situation? He did not. He just looked at a larger cause. He thought that India needs him more than just his own family. And in working for that larger cause, he went on to inspire and take care of his family also. In fact, and in his last years of life, the one thing that Vivekananda did was come back and he took his mother on a pilgrimage to all the places in India. He adored his mother, and he said that a man who does not adore his mother cannot become successful in life. That is the kind of family man, even though Vivekananda was a monk, he brought about this great change in the monastic order that he established, that traditionally a monk cannot go back to his family and to look after his parents. But this change was brought about in the Ramakrishna Mission because of this inspiration that Vivekananda provided, that if any of the young people join as monastic members in the Ramakrishna Mission, and if they have aged parents to look after, the monastic institution will provide for those aged parents. Even their aged parents are looked after by the institution. So we have to strike a balance between our family responsibilities as well as our social responsibilities. See, we have to look at society as an extension of the family, right? You are not just a member of an individual family, you're also a member of the extended community. Your community becomes your extended family. Your society becomes your extended community. Your nation becomes your extension of the family. If you look at it merely as an extension of your family, then the striking of the balance becomes equally important to you. So on the one hand, you have to take care of your own personal responsibilities, but on the other hand, there will be a lot of opportunity available to you to make a difference to the society around you, as I said. All you have to do is think about the problems of the society around you. What are the challenges that your community or your society is facing in today's situation? And using your skills, either using your personal skills or your academic skills, your professional skills, can you create an innovation, a solution to that problem? So if you create a genuine solution to one of these problems, you will go on to become a contributing member of that society, and society will respect you for that genuine solution that you provide. So I was giving you the example of Arate, right? It is giving us a solution to a tricky problem that we are facing today in terms of social networking today. Or you look at these IIT professors of IIT Kanpur and Kharagpur who used to go around in the nearby villages, and they were using the students they made the students, final year students, do their BTech projects by taking up the problems of the farmers. Suppose the farmers were having problems with the pumps that they were using in the agricultural farms. The project that would be given to the BTech students would be to solve that particular problem that the farmers was facing. So this was hands-on learning that they were learning, not simply doing a theoretical project, but they were doing a hands-on project that would go on to, become a solution for, agriculture there. There was the student of KCT in Coimbatore, for example, who invented a refrigerator, a commercial refrigerator at a very cheap cost, where, because farmers were facing this problem of storage. A commercial refrigerator that can help you store large quantities of food crops for a long period of time is very, very expensive. And this is where farmers lose, because they cannot store the crop for a long period of time. They're forced to sell it at a very cheap price to middlemen or to companies which have that kind of commercial refrigerators. So this fourth year student of that KCT, what amazes me is, because his father was a farmer and his father was facing this problem, he set his mind to that problem. And he said, why can't we produce a commercial refrigerator which will be very, very affordable, which can be distributed to these farmers? And just for about 5,000 rupees, he produced a commercial refrigerator in which these farmers could store their produce at least for about 10-15 days, so that they could bargain. At least they would have the time to bargain with these middlemen and these entities, and so that they could get a better price for their crops. So this is how, we have to think. We have to just look into our own backyard, into our own backgrounds, into our extended communities, and see what problems we can solve using the skills that our education is providing us. And if we can apply our minds to that, then, this striking of the balance between our personal and social responsibilities will come naturally to us. I hope I've answered these questions. If there are any other questions, we can take. How should we avoid? There is a question from Shreya who says, how should we avoid criticism from the surroundings when we move ahead with our goal? Okay. Why should we avoid criticism, Shreya? Right? You've heard of this Panchatantra story, no? There is an elephant walking through the street and the dogs are barking at the elephant, right? The dogs will always bark at the elephant because of the sheer size. The elephant is intimidating, and because of its sheer grandness, its magnificent appearance, the dogs will always feel insecure in front of the elephant. So it is only people who feel insecure who will criticize you. So if they are feeling insecure because of you and they criticize you, take it as a compliment that something in you is causing an insecurity to them, that which means that you are superior to them. You are like the elephant, and therefore you should welcome criticism. You should openly embrace criticism. Right? We have this proverb in Hindi which says that if everybody is abusing you, it means that you are doing something good in life. Right? You look at people in society. Whoever is doing something good in society in life will get abused, right? You take the prime minister of this country, how much of abuse these people are heaping on him for everything. And, he doesn't pay any attention to all of that abuse. He just ignores it. He doesn't respond to any of that abuse. He continues to work. And, you look at the situation that we are in today, that we are exporting vaccines to so many countries today. I'm sure that you would have seen this beautiful image that the Brazilian president shared on Twitter today, Bolsonaro as he is called. Right, he shared an image of Hanuman carrying that Sanjeevani mountain, bringing that herb called Sanjeevani, which saved the life of Lakshmana. Right, so he shared that image yesterday because India was exporting that vaccine to Brazil. I'll just share that image 1 second, because it's such a heartwarming image. I just want you to see this image which he shared yesterday. This is how India is being hailed all over the world today because of because of the skill of our scientists today. This is the kind of accolades that India is getting today. Just give me a minute. I hope you are able to see it. Okay, so this is the image that Bolsonaro, Brazilian ambassador, and the president shared on Twitter yesterday. Dhanyavad Bharat. Thank you, Bharat. And you see Hanuman carrying the vaccine, injection and the vaccine coming to that country. Right. So this is what India represents to the world today. Right. And you look at what is happening in India. Some of these politicians and all busybodies, those stupid people criticizing the Bharat Biotech vaccine, putting some doubts in people's minds. just like that, sowing doubts in the people's minds about the efficacy of the vaccine, that somebody died after taking the vaccine, something happened after taking the vaccine, that this vaccine has not completed its phase 3 results, and therefore a foreign vaccine will be better than Indian vaccine. This is how our own people are criticizing our own vaccine, while the Brazilian president is welcoming the Indian vaccine and embracing it, and he is saying thank you India, etc. So this is the kind of self-confidence that we should have, right? People will always criticize. There will always be these busybodies who will criticize, who will make fun of us. Like Vivekananda says, you will be ridiculed first. They will, first ridicule you. And when that ridicule does not work, they will oppose you tooth and nail. They will oppose you because they feel insecure about the new idea, the original idea that you are bringing. So therefore, they will ridicule you, they will oppose you, and finally they will accept you. So every successful person in life has to go through these 3 stages of ridicule, opposition, and acceptance, as Vivekananda says. And we all, should embrace criticism, welcome criticism. Criticism will become, the tool, the weapon that will, in fact, make us better. It will give us insights into what we need to improve in our own personality and in our own products or in our services that will help us to go on to become better than what we are. So don't avoid criticism. Don't try to avoid criticism. Don't be afraid of criticism. Welcome criticism. Be, face criticism boldly. Like Vivekananda faced those monkeys in Kashi that were harassing him. The moment he faced those monkeys, the monkeys, it seems, turned back and fell away. The moment you stand up to criticism, you face criticism, the criticism will run away from you. I'll tell you an interesting, a humorous incident that happens in Vivekananda's life. He's traveling in a train, and those days, you see, Indians were not easily allowed to travel in first class compartments in the trains. The white Britishers found it, out of their arrogance, they found it inferior that they should allow Indians to travel along with them in the same compartment. So it seems in the same coach, there were 2 white British men who were traveling, and they saw this young monk sannyasi sitting in front of them with soiled clothes, dirty clothes, orange clothes, wearing the sannyasi's clothes, because when he was traveling with just 2 sets of clothes wherever he was going, he would not even perhaps have the time to wash sometimes those clothes and keep it spick and span. So his clothes were looking a bit soiled because he was traveling for long distances. So these 2 English British officers, it seems, started making fun of his appearance in English. They thought that Vivekananda, this monk, they did not know who was the man who was sitting in front of them. They thought he was some ordinary monk, sannyasi traveling. He will not understand English. So it seems they were making fun of him, making fun of his appearance, making fun of his clothes, making fun of Indians in English. For 3 hours, it seems, they went on cracking jokes on Vivekananda, sitting in the same coach, thinking that Vivekananda did not understand what they were saying. Why? Because Vivekananda did not show a ripple of a reaction on his face. His face was stone cold, ice cold. He did not react or respond to anything that they were saying, though he understood every word of what they were saying. Now, when it seems the train reached the station and Vivekananda got down from the coach, suddenly these Britishers were taken aback to see that there was a large, big crowd to receive him. They did not realize that he would have been like a celebrity that he was. There was a big crowd waiting for him, and everybody was welcoming him, and they were garlanding him. And suddenly they found that Vivekananda started conversing with all these people in English, in fluent English. He was talking to all these people who were waiting for him on the platform. So they felt very embarrassed, knowing what they did. So it seems meekly they came to Vivekananda and said, sorry that we did not know that you understood English. We were talking all this. And look at Vivekananda's response. He simply smiles and says, sir, today is not the first day that I have met fools in my life. So it doesn't matter. Please don't worry. Okay. So this was his one-line response to them, that you are not the first fools that I have seen in my life. You can continue with your criticism as much as you want to. But the same Vivekananda, on board a ship, when he found 2 British officers were abusing Mother India, when they were, abusing India, he could not tolerate it. It seems he held one of the British officers by the collar and almost threw him overboard into the water and said, if you don't stop abusing my motherland, I will throw you into the sea. See, this is the difference, that when he was criticized, when his own personality was criticized, when the criticism was personal, Vivekananda would not react absolutely, would remain immune to that criticism. But if India was criticized, immediately the fire in Vivekananda would wake up. See, this is how we should be. If we connect ourselves to a larger cause, this is what will happen to us. That our personal weaknesses and our personal faults will become insignificant to us, right? We will not give too much attention to ourselves because we are joining ourselves to a larger cause. And if that larger cause becomes more important than our own individual, petty, small ego, then we will not be bothered about all this petty criticism. And it is that larger cause which will give us the motivation and the drive to succeed in life. This is the secret of all successful people, that they always, connect themselves to the larger cause and go on to become successful in life. Tell us about youth politics. Okay, we'll let us not go into politics too much, but just to say that Vivekananda wanted young people to get into politics also. He did not want young people to avoid politics, right? In fact, you will be surprised to know this is usually not told in public openly, that in many of his travels, when Vivekananda would go around to meet these freedom fighters and revolutionaries who were fighting the British, he taught them how to make bombs. Vivekananda knew how to manufacture bombs, crude bombs, and in fact, he would teach these revolutionaries to make bombs so that they could go and throw those bombs against the British. This was the fiery spirit of Vivekananda that he was. That he did not want us to avoid even politics. He wanted us to fight even violently if necessary against the British, to throw the British out, not merely through non-violence as some other leaders wanted. Vivekananda wanted us to fight tooth and nail against the British. So don't shy away from politics, because if young men like you shy away from politics, right? If young people like you shy away from politics, then if the cream of the country does not get into politics, then what will come into politics? We will have, as I said, this 50-year-old youth icon who will be left in politics, right? If we
Yeah.
have horrible leaders today ruling over us, people like Lalu Prasad Yadav ruling over us, it is because young people like you and me, intelligent people like you and me, are abandoning politics. We treat politics like something, something that is untouchable, something that is dirty. But if we don't dirty our hands, if a farmer does not get into the mud and dirties his hands, how will he produce, the beautiful crops that he is producing? How will a lotus bloom unless it blooms in, the dirt, in the swamp that it blooms in? So dirty your hands. If you want to get into politics, get into politics. But not into dirty politics,
Hello.
I would say, but become an example of the new India that we want to emerge in politics also.
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sir. Sir, I'm Harish Deepak from ECA department.
Yes, Harish.
So I basically have a doubt, sir. You said that young people and intelligent people like us, like this generation, should be involved in politics, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So even if you're talking about or suggesting anything good, important, or beneficially important for the society or politics, the people are suppressing us. Like, not people from other side, people like our teachers or any other people who are close, near and dear to us. They are suppressing us and oppressing our thoughts. So, with this suppression, how can we indulge in politics, sir? We don't even have a freedom of speech or freedom of expression in this country.
Partly true, in the sense that you see, the average Indian mindset is it shies away from controversy. It shies away from areas where there is too much heat, etc. And whether it's your parents or teachers, see, they don't, in your student stage of life, why they may be discouraging you from getting into active politics is because politics as it exists today in India, as I said, is very, very dirty, right? You cannot get into it without dirtying your hands. You cannot have, there is no politician in India who is 100% clean. It's impossible because the whole system is corrupt, and therefore you have to compromise somewhere a little in order to be able to do it. But it is possible to clean up. The cleanup is happening. We are far better than what we were in 2009 2013 period, right? So that change is happening, but still, there is a long way to go. You look at the example of, for example, Kiran Bedi, who was in the IPS, and she could not survive in IPS because she was too honest to be in the IPS. She was forced to retire. And she said, if I have to bring about change in this whole system, I cannot do it while I'm within the system. And therefore she got out of the system, and therefore she got into politics. And now as the governor in Puducherry, she's implementing some of her ideas there. So the situation is very, very crippling. And maybe because of that, your parents or your teachers, elders, they know that it is going to be very, very tough to be able to wade through this mud that exists in politics today, to be able to grow up. So they want you to first finish your education so that you become strong, stand on your own feet, right? Become financially comfortable, strong enough. You should have a backup. Getting into politics is not easy without the right resources. You need good amount of resources to be able to make an impact in politics. So you earn first that kind of skills, that kind of impact, prepare yourself, gain the intellectual skills, gain the knowledge, gain the financial resources necessary in order to be able to make that impact. That should be your focus now. You are in that student stage of life now, so you should prepare for that whatever you are looking to, that entry into politics maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now. But you should keep preparing for that. And don't think that they are discouraging you. They're just warning you against the hurdles that exist. So take it in the right spirit. And as far as freedom of expression is concerned, I think India is one of the freest countries in the world. Yeah, I don't think we should say that there is any obstacle to freedom of expression in this country. In which other country can you have this kind of freedom of expression where you can even abuse our gods and you can get away with it, right? There are people in and out. Look at these comedians, for example, who come on comedy shows and they keep heaping abuse on our gods, which is not right actually, but they're doing it. And yet, we don't attack them violently. We don't physically attack them. And we are tolerant enough to accept even that kind of unfair criticism, right? To that extent, we are able to digest criticism and opposition. So the kind of freedom of speech that you find in our country, my dear friends, you will not find anywhere else. Go to Pakistan and try to criticize. And imagine what will happen. Your head will be hanging next day from a tree. That is the kind of societies that these are. Absolutely intolerant societies these are. We are far better compared to those societies when it comes to freedom of expression. So, it is not right to say that we don't have freedom of expression. We do have freedom of expression. But the only thing is, as I said, youngsters are sometimes immature. And therefore, when we come on social media and express our opinions, we have to be a little careful. We have to be mature, right? We have to, the language that we use, the words that we use, right? We have to be very, very careful because it is a public platform and we should not cause hurt unnecessarily to any community or to any individual or to any particular, official authority or a post. And because young people tend to do this, therefore elders keep warning us that we should not do it. Okay, but to a certain extent, it is true that politically there is a little bit of this problem is there, but not now. Maybe years ago this problem was there. Imagine, there was this young man who criticized a politician and immediately he was arrested and put in jail. This is happening in Maharashtra, for example, where journalists like Arnab Goswami are being harassed. There was a young man called Samit Thakur, who was treated like a terrorist just because he put out a tweet against the chief minister's son there. So in that sense, that it is politicians who are in fact harassing or suppressing free speech in India. Some politicians, not all, I would say. There are some insecure politicians in India who are afraid of criticism, and therefore you have an atmosphere where today people are afraid of criticizing. But we should not be afraid as long as we are careful and we know how to express ourselves in a mature way on social media. We don't have to be afraid of anybody. We should express ourselves in a mature way and make a positive impact. Don't jump into controversy all the time, right? It is not necessary to give your opinion on every controversy that is happening in the country in order to be politically active or in order to be socially meaningful. You don't have to have an opinion on everything under the sun, right? You take up real important issues which are relevant to you as a student, which are relevant to our society. Take up those issues and you talk about it, you write about it, you blog about it, you post, tweet about it. Nobody is going to oppose you for doing that. In fact, you will find hundreds and thousands of followers who will come to follow you. If you make a positive, meaningful contribution through social media, you will have any amount of opportunities to express yourself. So this is how we should look at it positively and not take it in a negative sense. A lot of messages coming. How much time do we have? What is the biggest obstacle or roadblock that is stopping students like us from reaching our goals, such that if we get rid of it, we can become unstoppable? Is the social media affecting us too much? To a certain extent, yes. In Tamil Nadu in particular, I find this problem that mass media, and Dr. Babai was particularly referring to this problem, right? How mass media is influencing us in a negative way. This is definitely a problem that we should be aware of. That as young people, I want you to remember that message of C.V. Raman, where he was saying that you should have a fearless, independent mind. Question everything that you read on social media, especially in Tamil mass media like movies. A lot of negative messages are coming out. Distorted messages are coming out through some of these Tamil movies, for example. Very hidden political messages that come out in the name of spreading positive message. So please be very, very careful about what the mass media is telling you. Question everything. Have that independence of mind to question each and every detail before you accept it. If you have that kind of independence of mind, then you will not, the social media will not affect you too much. See, some days ago I was watching this movie of RJ Balaji called Mukkuthi Amman. In fact, RJ Balaji was one of my students. He's a graduate of Amrita School of Journalism, and I had taught him these courses on cultural education, etc. in Amrita when he was there. And I find it very sorry that he has gone on to make this movie called Mukkuthi Amman, where he is showing our religion in such a poor light. He is attacking some of these ashram gurus, etc. And there is so much of exaggeration and misinformation, misportrayal of our religious beliefs and practices in that movie. See, RJ Balaji, when he was this audio jockey on that radio, he was doing very good work. He was making a very positive impact on society when he was, for example, conducting some counseling sessions through those radio channels. And he went on to win many awards, and I respect him for that. He has made some positive impact through that, and we should acknowledge that. But what he is showing through that movie, I'm sorry to say, I do not agree with it. And this is not the kind of messaging that one should involve in. That frauds are there in all fields of life. It is true that there are fraud swamis in India, but to attack the very source of our religion and culture itself by showing some of these aberrations, by showing some of these distortions as representing the mainstream, this is not the right thing to do. So this is what mass media, social media in India is doing, and this is not the right thing to do. And we should beware of this influence of the mass media, the subtle messaging which the mass media is trying to do, right? So I remember in Twitter there was another phenomenon. Okay, the day when in fact the Prime Minister came to Madurai to inaugurate a hospital in Madurai, this what is called the All India Institute of Medical Sciences kind of hospital. I forget the name. Where you write NEET exam and the medical colleges. We had come to inaugurate this medical college in Madurai, and see, the whole state of Tamil Nadu should have taken pride in that event, that we were getting a state-of-the-art medical institution, hospital, medical college, that we will be getting access to this kind of cutting-edge medical education. Instead, if you look that day on Twitter, what happened? They started a campaign based on a filmy character that Vadivelu portrays in some movie. I forget the name of that character. Okay, there is a hammer that comes and falls on that fellow's Vadivelu's head in that movie, and he is hospitalized. And this became the Twitter hashtag. This became the Twitter trend in Tamil Nadu. Get well. What was it? Get well something. Okay, I forget the name of that Tamil character that he plays in that movie. So this is how you see social media is being used to hijack. To divert attention from the Prime Minister's inauguration of that medical college and hospital. They created an artificial Twitter hashtag where paid, people who political parties pay these fellows IT cells to sit there and go on tweeting lakhs of messages on Twitter, so that it becomes a trend. It comes to number one on Twitter, and then everybody starts noticing that, and the real message, the real event which is happening is completely hijacked and taken away. So in that sense, we have to beware of the influence of mass media, social media, especially in Tamil Nadu, the kind of negative messaging that is happening. And therefore, please have your independence of mind. Question everything before you accept anything. This is what, I would say. And what is stopping students? What is the roadblock that is stopping students like us? I've already talked about it in the class. As I said, overcome this inferiority complex. Don't think that you are lesser than anybody else. Don't merely look for theoretical knowledge, theoretical skills. Have hands-on skills. Be prepared for failure. Okay, develop risk-taking abilities in your life, right? And this is cultivate your willpower. Yesterday, I was reading this book called The Power of Habit by an American author called I think Richard Brigg, if I remember correctly. So what he is saying is that if educational institutions or those children who are trained in cultivating willpower from a very young age, it is such kind of people who will go on to become successful in life. There is an American neuroscientist psychologist who did this experiment, that they collected a group of 4-year-old kids. They put one kid in each room, separate rooms. They gave them a marshmallow. They gave them a sweet to eat. They put a sweet in front of that 4-year-old child, and they said, you have two choices. Either you eat that one sweet immediately now, in which case you will get only one sweet, But if you wait for 15 minutes, then you will get 2 sweets to eat. And then that researcher goes out of that room, that student, that 4-year-old boy or girl is left with that sweet in front of them. Okay, see, for a 4-year-old child to have a chocolate or a sweet or an ice cream in front of them and to be able to exercise self-control is not easy, as you know. So they said 70% of the kids in that group ate that first marshmallow, that treat. They could not control themselves. But 30% kids were able to control themselves. They exercised their willpower. How? It seems they imagined, they either closed their eyes and stopped looking at that sweet, and they were looking at something else. And this is how they, controlled themselves from eating that sweet. 15 minutes later, they got 2 sweets to eat. Now, why I'm telling this is an amazing extension of this research that came out was 15 years later, this researcher went on to track down all these 4-year-old kids who had participated in that experiment. Now they had become college kids. And he found that this 30% kids who had the willpower to wait for that 15 minutes were the people who had gone on to become successful in academics, in professional fields, in sports, in whatever domains they had, taken up, they became successful in those fields. So he says that if you cultivate this one quality of willpower, of determination of mind, from a young age, and if you can make students learn such qualities, it is those people who will go on to become successful in life. So this is how, please cultivate some of these qualities. This is why you should read Vivekananda literature, practice yoga, practice meditation. All this spirituality, Indian spirituality, is meant to strengthen your mind, your concentration of mind, your focus of mind, your willpower, etc., so that you can, overcome all these setbacks in life and go on to become successful in life. When all IITs provide prevailing problems as a project for final year students, why is India still lacking electronics industry? Yes, same situation in electronics, semiconductor chips, very true. In fact, when 1998 Pokhran blast was conducted, Abdul Kalam talks about it in his book, that all America and other countries blacklisted IIT Madras Aerospace Department and said that semiconductors and electronic parts should not be supplied to India for making missiles and this kind of nuclear technology. And then Abdul Kalam gave a call to all the young engineers. He said that we should be able to produce our own semiconductor chips and semiconductor technology in India so that we are not dependent on foreign countries for importing them. So why are we not able to do it? Please think about it, right? Because we are always looking up to the West. We always want to get a Harvard degree, Cambridge degree, and we want to go and settle down there. And we want to contribute. When we go there, we are able to contribute, but we don't want to come back here in India and face some struggles and to be able to do that. But of course, the pattern is changing today. There are many scientists who are coming back to India, who are doing this. As I said, people like Sridhar Vembu are giving us that inspiration. And you should all take that inspiration, because you are asking this question. I will say you take up this as your life's mission. You create one, company, firm which can produce semiconductors, in the you take this as your life goals, that in the next 20 or 25 years, that 4 of you from Meenakshi Sundararajan College should come together, should create a partnership firm. You create that partnership firm today. On paper, you create it today. That 20 years from now, we will produce the first semiconductor chip, indigenously made semiconductor chips in India, that we will not be dependent on foreign countries for doing it. And start working towards that goal. And I'll give it to you in writing. If you do this, right, if you take up this sankalpa, if you take up this resolution, I'm sure that you will go on to become successful in life, right? You will be able to do this. So each and every one of us has to do it, right?